My name is Daniel. I'm 87 years old, and after 63 years of marriage, I finally understand why mine survived when so many around us didn't. When I was a young man, I thought marriage was about finding the right person, someone compatible, someone patient, someone who wouldn't leave when things became difficult. I married my wife, Eleanor, when I was 24 and she was 22. We had very little money, very little furniture, and absolutely no idea what we were doing. But we had that feeling people talk about, the certainty, the excitement, the belief that love itself would carry us through anything. And for a while, it felt like it did. The first years were simple in the way only young years can be. We lived in a small apartment above a bakery, and every morning the smell of bread would drift through the floorboards. We would sit at a tiny table by the window and talk about the life we were going to build. Children, a house, stability. We assumed all of it would arrive naturally, like seasons changing. What we didn't understand was that love is not what carries a marriage through storms. It's what invites you into one. Our first real test came 5 years in. I had just started my own business and it was failing quietly. I didn't tell her how bad it was. I told myself I was protecting her from stress, but the truth is, I was protecting my pride. I would come home late, tense and distant, pretending everything was under control. She felt it long before I admitted it. The silence at dinner, the short answers, the way I stopped laughing. One night she asked me very calmly, "Are you fighting this alone on purpose?" That question unsettled me. I remember feeling exposed, almost irritated, because she had seen through me. I wanted to be the strong one, the dependable one. Instead, I felt small. We argued that night, not loudly, not dramatically, but in that sharp, quiet way that cuts deeper. For the first time, I saw how two people who love each other can still wound each other without meaning to. That was the first moment our marriage could have begun to unravel. It didn't look dramatic from the outside. No shouting, no broken plates. Just two people pulling inward, choosing pride over vulnerability. We survived that year, but not because the business improved. It didn't. It failed completely. We survived because I did something that felt unnatural at the time. I told her the truth, all of it. The debts, the fear, the shame. I expected disappointment. Instead, she said, "Then we will carry it together." That was the first lesson, though I didn't recognize it then. A marriage doesn't survive because both people are strong. It survives because neither insists on being strong alone. Over the decades, we watched other couples separate, some quietly, some painfully. Good people, loving people. When we were in our 40s, two of our closest friends divorced after 20 years. I remember sitting at our kitchen table afterward, trying to understand how something that lasted that long could still break. At the time, I assumed they must have fallen out of love. Now I know that isn't usually the reason. Love doesn't disappear suddenly. What disappears is the willingness to stay open when it would be easier to close off. In our 30s, when our children were young, exhaustion became our enemy. Sleepless nights, bills piling up, careers demanding more than we had to give. Romance didn't vanish, but it became quieter, buried under responsibility. There were months when our conversations revolved entirely around logistics. Who would pick up the children? Which payment was overdue? What needed fixing in the house? That period frightened me more than the business failure, not because we were fighting, but because we were drifting. We were functioning well, but we were not truly seeing each other. One evening, after the children were asleep, she said, "We talk about everything except us." That sentence stayed with me. It would have been easy to dismiss it, to say, "This is just how life is." Many couples do. They accept distance as a natural side effect of adulthood. But she didn't want distance, and I realized neither did I. So we began something simple. Once a week after the children were in bed, we sat at the kitchen table without distractions. No television, no paperwork, just 2 cups of tea and conversation about how we were actually feeling. Not about tasks, about us. There were evenings when those conversations were uncomfortable. We admitted frustrations we had hidden. We acknowledged small resentments before they grew larger. We listened without trying to win. That was the second lesson, though I didn't see it clearly until much later. Marriage survives when both people protect the connection as deliberately as they protect the mortgage or the children. In our 50s, another test came. Success arrived. The business I rebuilt eventually prospered. The children were grown. From the outside, it looked like we had reached the peaceful part of life. But success brought a different kind of danger. I traveled often. I received attention. I felt admired. There is something seductive about being needed in the world outside your home. It can quietly inflate your ego. I noticed slowly that I was bringing less of myself home. I gave my energy to colleagues, clients, strangers. At home I was tired, detached. She never accused me. She simply asked one evening, "Do you still choose this life with me, or are you just continuing it out of habit?" That question struck deeper than any argument ever had, because habit can look like loyalty, but it isn't the same thing. I realized then that a long marriage is not a single promise made at an altar decades ago. It is a decision renewed quietly, often invisibly, year after year. We had moments of disappointment, times when one of us felt misunderstood, days when we were irritable for reasons neither of us could fully explain. But we learned something that most people misunderstand about compatibility. Compatibility is not the absence of friction. It is the willingness to repair quickly. If I spoke harshly, I learned to apologize without defending myself. If she withdrew, she learned to say what hurt her instead of expecting me to guess. These things sound small. They are not. Small repairs prevent large fractures. In our 70s, illness entered the picture. Her health declined first. Doctor appointments replaced vacations. Medication schedules replaced spontaneous plans. I watched the woman who once moved through rooms with effortless energy begin to slow. Caring for her changed me. It stripped away whatever selfishness I still carried. There is something sacred about tending to someone who once carried you through your own failures. It reminded me of that first year when she said, "Then we will carry it together." Now it was my turn. We had long afternoons sitting quietly by the window. We spoke less about the future and more about the past, not with regret, but with gratitude. We remembered the bakery beneath our first apartment, the kitchen table conversations, the arguments we survived, the seasons that felt unbearable at the time, but now seemed almost gentle in memory. She passed away 3 years ago. People often ask me how we stayed married for so long. They expect me to say love, patience, shared values. Those things matter, but they are not the answer. The reason our marriage survived is simpler and more demanding than that. We never treated distance as normal. Every time something came between us, pride, exhaustion, success, fear, we noticed it. and we moved toward each other instead of away. Not perfectly, not gracefully, but deliberately. I have known couples who loved each other deeply, but slowly stopped turning toward one another's pain. They let silence grow. They let small hurts accumulate. They assumed time would fix what attention did not. Time does not fix distance, it expands it. At 87, when I look back, I do not remember the specific arguments. I do not remember who was right. I remember the moments we chose to remain open when it would have been easier to protect ourselves. A long marriage is not built on constant happiness. It is built on 1,000 quiet decisions to stay vulnerable. If you are younger than I am, and you are married or hope to be, I will tell you what I wish someone had told me when I was 24. Do not wait for love to carry you. Carry each other. Do not assume silence will protect the peace. Speak gently before silence hardens. And do not believe that staying together is the same as staying connected. Connection is something you maintain, not something you inherit. I am 87 years old, and I have outlived the woman I loved for 63 years. What remains with me now is not the memory of grand romantic gestures. It is the memory of two imperfect people who kept choosing each other, especially on the days when it was inconvenient. That is why our marriage survived. Not because we were extraordinary, but because we refused to drift.